the Orient means the East. It is a traditional designation for anything that belongs to the Eastern world or the Middle East or the Far East, in relation to Europe. In English, it is largely a metonym for, and coterminous with, the continent of Asia. Derivation: the term Orient derives from the Latin word oriens meaning east. The use of the word for rising to refer to the East has analogues from many languages, compare the terms Levant, Vostok Russian, th 3/4 nnth 3/4 th, Anatolia, Mizrahi in Hebrew, Sharq Arabic, oo plus or minus or Euro, Shijis Kazakh, Enanu Enon, Turkish, Doayu, Chinese, the plus or minus and the land of the rising sun to refer to Japan. Also, many ancient temples, including pagan temples and the Jewish temple in Jerusalem, were built with their main entrances facing the east. This tradition was carried on in Christian churches. To situate them in such a manner was to orient them in the proper direction. When something was facing the correct direction, it was said to be in the proper orientation. The opposite term Occident derives from the Latin word occidens, meaning west. This term meant the West but has fallen into disuse in English. History of the term. In the later Roman Empire, the Praefectura Praetorio Orientis, the Praetorian Prefecture of the East, included most of the Eastern Roman Empire from the Eastern Balkans eastwards. Its easternmost part was the Diocese of the East, the Diocesis Orientis, corresponding roughly to the region of Syria. Over time, the common understanding of the Orient has continually shifted eastwards, as Western explorers traveled farther into Asia. It finally reached the Pacific Ocean, in what Westerners came to call the Far East. These shifts in time and identification sometimes confuse the scope of Oriental studies. Yet there remain contexts where the Orient, and Oriental have kept their older meanings. Travelers may again take the Orient Express train from Paris to its terminus in the European part of Istanbul, a route established in the early 20th century. In European historiography, the meaning of the Orient changed in scope several times. Originally, the term referred to Egypt, the Levant, and adjoining areas. Later, the term became synonymous with Islam and Judaism and its scope expanded both eastward and westward to include all non-European areas of Eurasian civilization, including North Africa as far west as Morocco. During the 1800s, India, and to a lesser extent China, began to displace the Levant as the primary subject of Orientalist research. By the mid-20th century, Western scholars generally considered the Orient as just East Asia, Southeast Asia, and Eastern Central Asia. As recently as the early 20th century, the term Orient often continued to be used in ways that included North Africa and even parts of southeastern Europe. Today, the term primarily evokes images of China, Korea, Japan, Vietnam, and Peninsular Southeast Asia. Throughout the history of the changing sense of the term, the Orient was never equivalent to Asia as a whole. The Orient being largely a cultural term, large parts of Asia Euro-Siberia most notably Euro were excluded from the scholarly notion of the Orient. Equally valid terms for the Orient still exist in the English language in such collocations as Oriental studies. The adjectival term Oriental has been used by the West to mean cultures, peoples, countries, and goods from the Orient. Oriental means generally Eastern. It is a traditional designation for anything belonging to the Orient or East, and especially of its Eastern culture. It indicated the Eastern direction in historical astronomy, often abbreviated ORI. In contemporary English, Oriental usually refers to things from the parts of East Asia traditionally occupied by East Asians and most Central Asians and Southeast Asians racially categorized as Mongoloid. This excludes Jews, Indians, Arabs, and most other South or West Asian peoples. Because of historical discrimination against Chinese and Japanese, in some parts of the United States, some people consider the term derogatory. For example, Washington state prohibits the word Oriental in legislation and government documents, preferring the word Asian instead. In more local uses, Oriental is also used for eastern parts of portions of the Mediterranean Sea, for example Morocco's Oriental region. Oriental is also used as an adjective akin to Eastern, especially in the Spanish-speaking world. For example, the Philippine islands of Mindoro and Negros are each divided into two provinces whose titles include the words Oriental and Occidental respectively. The official name of Uruguay is the República Oriental del Uruguay or Oriental Republic of Uruguay because it is east of the Uruguay River. Since the 19th century, Orientalist has been the traditional term for a scholar of Oriental studies. However, the use in English of Orientalism to describe academic Oriental studies is rare. The Oxford English Dictionary cites only one such usage, by Lord Byron in 1812. Orientalism is more widely used to refer to the works of the many 19th-century artists who specialized in Oriental subjects, often drawing on their travels to North Africa and Western Asia. Artists as well as scholars were already described as Orientalists in the 19th century. In 1978, Palestinian-American scholar Edward Said published his influential and controversial book, Orientalism. He used the term to describe a pervasive Western tradition, both academic and artistic, of prejudiced outsider interpretations of the Arab and Muslim worlds, shaped by the attitudes of European imperialism in the 18th and 19th centuries. Current usage: American English. Some in the Americas and Europe consider Oriental an antiquated, pejorative, and disparaging term. John Kuo-Wiechan, director of the Asian American Studies Program and Institute at New York University, said the basic critique of the term developed in the 1970s. Chen has said, with the anti-war movement in the 60s and early 70s, many Asian Americans identified the term Oriental with a Western process of racializing Asians as forever opposite others. In a press release related to legislation aimed at removing the term Oriental from official documents of the state of New York, Governor David Paterson said, "The word Oriental does not describe ethnic origin, background or even race. In fact, it has deep and demeaning historical roots." British English. In British English, the term Oriental refers to people from East and Southeast Asia. East and Southeast Asians comprise 0.7% of the UK population as a whole, and 5.3% of the non-European population. Of these, the majority are of Chinese descent. Orient is also a word for the luster of a fine pearl. Australian English. In Australian English, the term Asian generally refers to people of East Asian or Southeast Asian descent, such as those of Chinese, Korean, Japanese, Vietnamese, Thai, or Filipino descent. Persons of Indian, Pakistani, Sri Lankan, and most other South Asian descent are referred to by their respective demonym, but without explicit knowledge, those people are indeterminately inferred as Indian. The word Oriental, in place of Asian, is seldom used of late in colloquial conversation in Australia. German. In German, Orient is usually used synonymously with area between the Near East and India, including Israel, the Arab world, and Greater Persia. The term Asiat means the people of East Asia and Southeast Asia. Another word for Orient in German is Morgenland, which literally translates as morning land. See also, Asian, metonymy, Levant, land of the rising sun, Orient Express, Orientalizing period of archaic Greek art, political correctness, School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London, Occident, Notes. References and further reading: Ankle, Guy. Coexisting Contemporary Civilizations, Arabo-Muslim, Bharati, Chinese, and Western, in the Press, Geneva, 2000. ISBN 2-88155-004-5, The American Oriental Society, The Oriental Institute at University of Chicago, on Asian and Oriental Model Minority posting by Alan Hu. Banned words for comparative analysis, a list banned words is documented by Diane Ravitch. The Critic in the Orient by George Hamlin Fitch, German Orient Gate, What's the Matter with Saying the Orient? By Christopher Hill for About Japan, a Teacher's Resource.